Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here at Family Strengthening Families Parent Cafe. And today we're just going to talk about watching our words. When we're talking with our children, what are we really saying when we're speaking with them? And we all know that the words we say and how we say them can make a difference. So, what are we really saying when we speak to our children? And I know I've heard it. I'm sure most of you have heard it. The old saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt. And I know we would all like to think that that's true, but that's just not the case. That is so untrue because we would want to think that if someone throws something at you or they physically strike you, that, that would hurt and then the words just would just roll off and don't bother you. But just as if a physical strike or someone physically hitting you hurts, words hurt as well. And that physical hit that you receive may hurt for short periods of time, but those words, the words that are used, if they're harmful words, those words can leave lifelong effects, negative effects on that child. So what you say to your children in their youth, that stays with our lives. And also, we see sometimes these things come back out into adulthood, just by something that happened in your childhood. So words hurt just as much, if not worse, than physically being hurt. So remember, just be mindful when you're talking with your children, how you're using words and what you're saying to them when you're talking with them, because words make a difference, and children are greatly affected by the words that are spoken to them. So just be mindful of that when you're talking with your children. You want to make a positive, lasting impact on them. So you don't want to say something to them that's negative or hurtful when they're young, and then they have to, hold on to that, and it sticks with them into their adulthood. So be mindful of that and how you're treating others as well. The things you're saying to others. So they're observing, they're like little sponges, they're taking all of that in. So the way that we're talking to not only our children, but our other family members, our spouses, our partners, if you're co parenting with another parent, the way you're speaking with that parent as well. And just strangers or other family members, the words that you're using, children are watching and they're taking all of this in. So, another thing to remember when we're talking about, watching how and what we're saying to our children is when we're comparing siblings. Sometimes we see this happen, and maybe you have one child who's exceeding in their academics. They're doing great. Their grades are great. They have, no problems with homework assignments, test taking skills, and things like that. But you may have another child who needs a little bit extra help, a little bit more motivation. And sometimes compare the two. And you may ask the child who needs a little extra help, why can't you be like your brother or your sister? You know, it's not that the child doesn't want to do their best, but maybe there's something going on that they need that extra help. So instead of comparing the two, which could sometimes turn those two siblings against each other or cause bickering or ill feelings between those two, maybe just try to be more encouraging with your words, say more positive things to that child who needs a little extra help. Be there as a support and encourage them. Maybe they have a D average in a class. Work on help that child. Praise them when you see they're doing a little extra homework. When you see that they're really trying to get the subject information, praise them when you see them doing something good, and encourage them, support them. Maybe if we can get that D up to a C, and then we'll work on getting up to the B, and we'll eventually reach that A. Be more supportive and encouraging. Use those positive words. Um, don't criticize your children. Sometimes parents do this without thinking about it, or criticizing a parent in front of that child, or comparing that child and that parent. You're upset with the co-parent, and you say something negative about that parent, the child's other parent, in front of the child. And then maybe you come back, the child does something wrong later in the day, and you compare the child to the dad. If you're mad at dad, you're just like your daddy. You're not going to be anything he doesn't do right. You're not doing right. When you start showing criticism and using those negative words, that child is internalizing it and they're taking it in. They may not say anything to you, but they're holding that inside, and it could bother them. It could cause them to, act out on it later. So be aware when you're criticizing or comparing your children. Also, insults, threats, sarcasm. Sometimes parents, you want to have a sense of humor. You should have a sense of humor because being a parent or a caregiver, some things, you have to laugh them off. You have to laugh about it and go on, if it's not, anything causing harm or danger to the child. But sometimes children just do some of the things that just make you laugh. So you have to keep that sense of humor. You don't want to lose the sense of humor because then you take everything personal and you become overwhelmed and frustrated. But you have to be careful and not to use so much sarcasm that it starts to harm that child. Maybe you have a parent, or you are that parent who jokes a lot, and that's fine. But be careful with the jokes that you're using. You don't want to have any jokes that where you're belittling your child, you're criticizing your child, insulting your child, making threats to your child, or making your child feel that they're worthless, or affect their self-esteem. So be careful with the criticism and the sarcasms. Because all of that can form lasting scars. They create lasting scars. And you may say, well, you don't see you as the parent like to joke. Make sure you can establish those rules in your household so that everyone knows what boundaries you have in place, what jokes are off limits, what things, what people, are off limits, and just make sure that you're respecting everyone's sense of comfort and safety. You don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable or unsafe just by a joke that you're telling. Avoid putting your child down, and you may not feel that it's serious, but if you say something and you put your child down, especially if you're doing that in front of others, that's like a form of shame. You're putting your child down, you're embarrassing them, and you're causing shame. So be careful especially when you're out in public around family, friends, and maybe you're sharing a little too much information about your child, something that's personal or something they don't feel comfortable with you sharing. Watch those words, watch what you're saying about your child. Everything is not meant to be said openly. If a child, especially if a child is having something personal going on or they're confiding in you, that's not something that you should just go and openly talk about. um, just be mindful of that, of how much information about your child you share and how you share it. So you don't want to put your child down or disclose their personal information. That's something that children, especially teenagers, preteens, um, if they, tell you things or they're sharing things with you, then just make sure you're keeping that communication open because at that age, they're not easy to share. They're just not open as much as the younger children. So be careful if they are telling you things. Watch your words. Watch how you respond to them and watch the things that you share that they share with you, especially if they didn't give you permission to share. So be mindful of that. Also, you want to make sure when you discipline your children, if your child has made you upset and you're disciplining your child, calm down. Not only is that calm down good if you're physically disciplining your child, use appropriate discipline methods, but also if you're verbally correcting your child or redirecting your child, make sure that you're calm enough to to the point where your words, the words that you're saying to them, are not harmful. Because sometimes when you're upset, you say things that you don't really mean, you don't feel, but it's what you're feeling at that moment. It's not necessarily how you truly feel about your child, but when you're upset, take a breather, cool down, calm down, then come back and discipline your child, correct the child's behavior. Because you could say something during that time, while you're upset, that's really harmful to your child. And again, that leaves a lasting effect on them, impact on them. So you don't want to say things that you say out of anger, and it causes harm for your child later, which could also affect your relationship in the future. So be mindful of that. Take you a few minutes and calm down before you correct that child's behavior. And also, just be mindful of how you're treating your children, and others. Treat them with respect. You would like for your child to respect you as a parent. Also, in turn, you have to respect your child. Some people say, well, I'm the parent, it's about me, I make the rules. But children are to be respected as well. We have to show our children how to respect others and how to respect themselves. Therefore, when they're older, when they're out, they're not with their parents, they're aware and they know how to respect others and how to respect themselves. So it starts within our home. We have to show our children how to give and receive respect. So respect your child, focusing on, you know, what's right, and focusing on what's if the child is going through some not necessarily who that child is. So be mindful of labeling those words that you use. Whatever words you pour into your child and you speak on your child, that's what you're looking to receive. So if you're wanting to correct that bad or negative behavior, don't label your child as a bad child. That behavior is bad, but focus it on your child and how we're going to improve this behavior. Because my child is strong willed, determined, outgoing, independent, not bad. But separate those. And also, when we're talking about respect and using words, not only to our children, but to others, using racial slurs, derogatory words, insults, whether you use them to your child or to others, children are watching and they're taking all of that in. So if that's not something you want to see your child repeat, don't use those words in front of your child or around your child. Even if you don't verbally speak them, if you're texting or you're putting it on your social media or anywhere where your child can see or get access to your words, make sure you're aware of the words you're putting out because your children are taking those in. So just to kind of wrap everything up today, we want to encourage our children. We want to speak positive things into our children. So encourage your children, and their behaviors. Praise them when they're doing well. Find word. We're going to focus on positive things, not negative. Um, Look for positive actions. Look for positive qualities, things that you enjoy seeing your child do, or things that your child does well. If you catch them doing nice things, reward them. Show praise, verbal praise. Brag on them. It's okay to brag in those moments, and that will encourage your child and motivate your child to do more positive things and actually make them feel better about themselves. And also, just talk with your children. We always talk about keeping the communication open with your say, because you might hear some of those words come back that you poured into them. So keep your ears open and listen. Have those open and honest conversations daily, every day. Have those spark up those conversations with your child. And lastly, keep your promises. If you promise your child something, make sure you follow through. Prove to your child that they can trust you. If for whatever reason something happens and you can't fulfill a promise that you made, apologize. Be honest with them. Explain to them why you couldn't come through on that promise. But there's nothing wrong with apologizing again. Those words we pour into our children and it'll come back. We'll see that positive come back. So be honest with them. Be open with them. Apologize when you need to. And if you know you cannot fulfill a promise, don't make that promise, because your promise is your word. And if you're giving them your word, you're promising them something, and then you break it, they're not gonna be able to trust you. They're not gonna trust anything else you say. They're not gonna really wanna listen or respect you. And then that's also teaching them that it's okay if you go back on your word, that you break your promise. So make sure if you're promising your child something, that you're able to fulfill it and come through. Again, apologize if you're not able to do so. But just making sure that we're aware of how much of a difference our words can make. So, just start each day with something positive. Speak one positive word over your child in the morning. Ask your child if they're of age, they're appropriate enough to understand, for them to find one positive word to say. And they can say that to you, to themselves, or to someone else throughout the day. But start in the home with working on speaking positive words into your child. So your children will, it's like a bank. You pour more positive words in, they're able to use those positive words when they need them. And you can be creative, come up with different ways that you and your family would like to share words of encouragement or positive words throughout the day with one another. And let your children be in on the planning. Just, listen to their opinions, see what they have, see what you can come up with, and just use that and see how it helps, even with communication. This can be just an icebreaker to start communication between you and your children. So I hope today that we were able to help you out with these words, speaking positive words of your children, watching our words, what we say. Be mindful of not only our words, but our actions, putting our actions, to the test. What we say we're going to do, we actually go through and do it. So watch our words. Be mindful that our words can actually hurt our children. We may not see it come out right then, but just remember and be aware that words do actually hurt. So let's watch our words that we're saying to our children, speaking to our children, speaking to others in our home and our families and around us, because at the end of the day, our words really matter. So be positive, stay strong, stay safe until we see you again on next week. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.